You're listening to St. Pius X Catholic Church in Lafayette, Louisiana. Thank you for joining us.
Just a little bit of housekeeping before the homily. As many of you know, there's a storm out there, I think. Someone told me that. And we've had to make some adjustments, obviously, to our church schedule. And so we will not have the 5 p.m. Mass this evening. We had to make the call yesterday afternoon so everybody had enough time to make adjustments to their schedules. And by the way, I think as a parish, and I'll mention this in a minute, I think it's beautiful how many people came to Mass last night in the morning who I usually see at the 5 p.m. to make sure that they were able to receive the Eucharist before the storm came. That's a good indicator to a pastor of where the hearts of the congregation lie. But also we will not have what I affectionately mention as the O Dark 30 Mass tomorrow morning in order for things to maybe get back to a little more normal. We will have a 5:30 p.m. daily Mass tomorrow evening. I hope you're able to come. I think at this point we can relatively safely say, we still have some weather to go through, we can relatively safely say that we have been spared the brunt of the storm. And so we'll make sure that we keep those folks in Baton Rouge, New Orleans, Houma, Morgan City, and all those surrounding areas in their prayers, including the southern part of our diocese, which looks like it's going to get hit fairly significantly as well. And so as we move forward, the other thing I wanted to mention is let's all be responsible regardless of what's going on in the weather situation. That just because we've been spared doesn't mean that we should behave recklessly or take risks. Remember, our hospitals are already overloaded. Our hospitals are already at a point of needing to get help from the outside. So any behavior that we have that could cause injury, maybe we just refrain from it. You know, if we're going to get that chainsaw out right away, let's just hold off maybe so that we don't end up adding to the problems that we have with our limited healthcare resources in light of both the pandemic and the storm. But this weekend is our State of the Parish address, I like to affectionately refer to it as. And so it's a state of our parish, and how are we doing? It's kind of my report to you to be accountable as well as transparent in what's going on in our church and our parish community. And we do it once a year. Talk about what's going on last year, what we hope to accomplish next year, and also a financial report, and we talk about finances. Those of you who are visiting, sorry, you drew the unlucky straw. For the next 51 weeks, we won't talk about money, but we will this weekend. And I usually mention it the week before that we're going to do this, and someone told me, no, Father, you can't do that, because if you do that, then everybody's going to go to Holy Cross next weekend. We're not going to have anybody here. But anyway, what's the state of the parish? And it's good. We are doing well, and I'll tell you precisely why in just a few minutes. But we are doing well. First, the report about the things that are going on. Thank God we got Father Poirier. I tell you that, because since he's gotten here, had the stained glass windows installed. He got the parking lot almost finished, almost. The canopy's done, you know. He got roofs on Leon Packer Hall and the Parish Life Center and the annex and the office. I mean, he's been busy the last 2 months. We thank God he's here. I think he told you all that last week, didn't he? No. But in all seriousness, we're so happy to have him as a new addition to our clergy here. And, you know, he is a man of prayer, a man of piety, dedicated. He's also very much virtuous. In other words, he's everything that your pastor is not. And it's good. I don't say, oh, Father, don't say that about yourself. I have to say that's half tongue-in-cheek. What I mean by half tongue-in-cheek is, no, I don't have any self-esteem issues, so no one has to come to me after Mass, like they usually do, when I'm a little self-deprecating, and say, oh, Father, we think you're dedicated. Don't, tap your hand. You're okay. But no, I think for those of you who are married and been married for a while, I don't think you can't help but be renewed a little bit in your fervor and your zeal when you see the joy and exuberance of a young married couple, huh? You know, when you see them and how they are looking so much forward to life and all those wonderful things. And sometimes the ordinary becomes very ordinary. And we can, when we see, like myself, a young, newly ordained in the zeal and the energy and the joy, it can't help but renew me and help me become better. And so we very much enjoy having him here. But the state of the parish is good. I mentioned the things that we were able to accomplish, but the reason why the state of the parish is good is because of you. It's because of you. You know, throughout the pandemic, we really never saw a significant decrease in our offertory, at least on a year-to-year basis. I know some people were unable to give during the pandemic as they usually could. I know some people were able to give more, and they did. And folks simply stepped up. Folks simply stepped up. And you can see by the number of givers that we have, because we're able to note, you know, at least in the number of folks, that's increased steadily over the last year. And what a wonderful thing that is. And I mentioned last year, and it's the same thing this year, that the way we're going to be able to service our debt and to do what we need to do is if everybody takes a hold of the rope and pulls to the extent that they can. And that appears to be happening. And so for those who maybe aren't giving, you know, we do have a significant number of those. You know, think about it. Every gift is important. Every gift, small or large. Not just in the sense of the power of numbers. You would not believe how much it adds up to be when everybody is giving, even a small amount. But that it's also important to our souls. It's also important to our souls. I mean, we hear in our second reading today, and I'm seeing this, and I'll explain to you metrically how I'm seeing this. But to humbly welcome the word, that means God, Jesus, humbly welcome the word that has been planted in you and is able to save your souls. And that's where the most important part of what we do comes into play, the salvation of our souls. And that's what giving regularly and generously can do for us. It's a part of that salvific plan. Many of you know about my journey and my change from lawyer to priest. And you know, I used to be that guy in the back, sitting at the corner, ready to jump out the door and get to the car. And when the offertory plate came around, I would pick out a dollar bill and kind of arbitrarily throw it in. And then I kind of thought, well, you know, I need to be more responsible that the church is giving me more. So then I made a pledge to myself that whatever was the biggest bill in my wallet, I would put in the basket. I prayed sometimes that it wasn't 100, you know. But then I began to think about it more systematically and got envelopes and began to write a check each week. And the check reminded me what was really important. And then I was challenged to tithe. So what does tithing mean? 10%. So I'm sitting there in prayer going, dear Lord, 10% of the net or 10% of the gross? The response came back, the gross. It's like, oh man. But in that change, in my giving habits, came a certain peace. I've never worried about money since then. And I had reason to worry about money. When I went in the seminary, I was looking at 5 years of no income, and I wanted to keep my home. I had a home. And I wasn't sure how it was going to work out. I didn't know what was going to do it, but I thought it was important for me to have a stable place. Besides the fact, if the seminary kicked me out, I needed some place to go live. And I didn't want to have to go home to mom and dad as much as I love them. Been gone for a while. But it all worked out. And I never have really worried about it since. And there's a certain peace that God gives us when we know that we're living in a right relationship with Him and His church. Can't buy that. Can't buy that. And so, as I said, as a community, we're doing okay financially. We are going to continue with some projects. But giving is infectious, not only in the person, but in the community. And you guys are doing that. I can see it. The numbers tell us that. And we've even had an uptick so far this fiscal year in our offertory. And that's been wonderful to see, despite the circumstances around the world, which we are dealing with in the pandemic and now another hurricane. But the real reason why we're doing well, and that's a good reason why we're doing well, but really, in my mind, it's because of the sacramental work of the church. We hear about dealing with the interior in our gospel today, huh? That it's not what goes into the body that what comes out, what comes from the heart. And so, since I arrived in 2018, 3 years ago, we gradually have increased the sacramental availability, particularly confessions and daily masses. So, since then, we have tripled the time of scheduled confessions. We have tripled the number of people going to confession, if not more. That's cleaning up the inside. That's a certainty of grace. You know, we have so many people that come to our Advent and our Lenten penance services, 300-400, my gosh. It's crazy. We got to get 5 or 6 other priests to come in. Father Poirier and I both have to come on Saturdays because there's too many people for one priest to hear the confessions, and we expanded that from an hour to an hour and a half. That's a sign that we are doing well as a parish. Our daily masses. We started with simply adding a Saturday morning mass, Saturday morning daily mass, great response. Then we ended up adding a Tuesday, Thursday midday mass. That does very well. Actually, it's bigger than the 6 a.m. now. And next week we'll begin having midday mass every day. We have tripled the number of people, actually more than tripled the number of people who are receiving communion each day. That's cleaning up the inside. That's getting us focused where we need to be. We just came off 5 weeks of studying the Bread of Life discourse. And we hear what Jesus thinks of the Eucharist, but more importantly, it's what we think of it. And I know with the certainty of these graces in confession and in Holy Communion, that we are doing well as a congregation in the sense that all of that grace can't help but make us better. And it's an acknowledgement of each and every one of us who does come, the importance that it plays in our lives and the gift that it is to each and every one of us. For those of you who are maybe not going to daily mass, pick a day, one day, I promise you. Make it just a little crack in the door. God will flow through. And one day can become 2 days, can become 3 days. It's something that I actually lived through too. For a period of my life, there was a gradual conversion over the course of 5 years. I was thinking differently. I was very much differently. And the only thing that I could really put my finger on was the fact that I was going to regular confession and pretty much daily mass every day that I could as my work schedule permitted. I changed. That's the power of the Eucharist. It may not be the zap moment or the light bulb moment, but over the course of time, we continue to form ourselves into receiving Him and receiving His mercy and His grace, and we will change. And for me as a pastor, that's where the goodness of the community comes into play. How are we doing? We are doing well. Let's continue the good work. Let's make sure that we all jump into the grace that God wants to give to us and allow Him to transform us. And that's the odd intro. That's the odd intro. In other words, we have to be good as a community, so to speak, in the way that God teaches us, in order for us to go to the odd extra, which means go out to the world. Go out to the world and bring His light to others. And we have to do that rightly, or else when we do go out, we're not doing it as well as we can, or maybe not doing it right at all. And when I say that, within our community, that odd intro, we tend to call everything here at St. Pius a ministry. And it's not. It's not. Words mean things, and in today's day and age, there are certain ministries, but ministries are really focused to the odd intra, to us, especially the sacraments. And so the ministry that we do is how we prepare ourselves on our campus to bring God to the world, and then when we go to the world, that's the apostolate. That's what's called the apostolate. And sometimes it bleeds over, bringing communion to someone who's at home. Maybe it's both ministry and apostolate to some extent. But really, over the last 3 years, you can see the odd intra, the true ministry, as I would say, or what ministry is really intended to denote, has grown, and has grown tremendously, and that's wonderful. And as I said, that's where we as a parish can then go to the apostolate, to those outside our campus, let's say, and truly minister to them in the way that God has taught us to. And that is by humbly accepting His word. As our second reading said, humbly accepting His word that will bring salvation to our souls. And in the end, that's all that really matters. What's going on our campus, the beautiful parking lot, all those things, am I happy? Absolutely. But what gives me the greatest joy is to see us growing in faith and in hope and in charity. And that's where the rubber hits the road. And so next year, we have several other projects that we want to complete. We have a contract for the house next to the fence on the parking lot for the rectory. Y'all are so kind. Everybody's worried, Father, where do you sleep? Like I'm homeless or something. Yeah, we're going to get a rectory. I'm doing just fine. Y'all take care of us very, very well. I think Father Poirier would agree. We're going to take care of getting the rectory together. We're going to take care of repurposing the old church, Leon Packer Hall, into a ministries building. And so we'll be able to do the things ad intra that we need, Bible studies and other formation programs for our children. We're also going to increase the capacity of the cry rooms. That's a great problem to have. We love the young families and the children who are here, but we need to get a little bigger in the cry rooms to adequately serve those families. So a lot of good things are happening, but in the end, none of those really matter. None of those really matter. if we're not growing in our faith and in our hope and in our charity, if we're not following Christ more closely. And in the end, like I said, that's where the rubber hits the road. So all of these good things might not be happening, but if we were tripling confessions and daily mass attendees, I'm happy. We just struggle with the world. But we know that God is working within each and every one of us. You know, this is the end of my 3rd year. It's been such a joy to be here. You guys have been such a joy to work with. You guys have made me a better priest in so many ways that many of you wouldn't even know. Whether it's the sick and their witness to understanding God's love in their life in a very difficult time, or whether it's someone who simply is telling me something that they were able to do, an act of charity that I would have never thought of, that kind of expanded my thought of how I relate to others. And so in you making me a better priest, I want to let you know how much of a joy it is to serve you, but also how much you've simply made me a better priest and have helped me in my journey towards God. Let's hope that we all continue to move in that direction. Let's make sure that we ourselves continue to do the good work that God has begun in us and let him bring it to completion. In the bulletin, in the Pastor's Corner, there's a list that I publish each year about ways to look at and reflect upon our weekly or monthly offering, whatever it may be. And so if you would, pick that up on the way home, take a look at it. Let's not be arbitrary about it. There are a few things in there that I think we should all take into consideration. In some ways, it does indicate the value we place on our faith. But as a practical matter, we do have to keep the lights on, and to do the things we need to do. And also, our annual report is at the doors. For those who usually get it by mail, you will in the next week or so. Unfortunately, the printer got delayed, and we weren't able to get it out before Mass today, but you can certainly feel free to pick one up on the way back. It tells you a little bit about our activities and how your money is used so that you can see that I am doing what I need to do to be a good steward. But in the end, like I said, all of these things, although important, really in the end, the most important thing is our continued growth in love of God and bringing that to the world. So let's pray for the continued ministry of our church, us being cleaned up on the inside, so then that we can go to the outside and be true lights of Christ in the world.